we're going to get right to it today and remove this wonderful thing right here, because race truck. Remove your mass airflow sensor first. Then we're going to remove this entire air box assembly. So you have a variety of bolts. You have some hose clamps to take off. So we're going to do that now. You're gonna have to unclip this hose and this hose. This one just pops right off. Same as this one. And don't forget the little 8mm right here. This whole unit is loose now, so you just have to wiggle it through all the lines, pull it out. Now with a 10mm socket, we're going to remove all of these bolts here. This will release your grill. And as you can see down here, there's clips. There's about 5 of them. You actually have to press down on them, each one of them, to pull the bottom of the grill out. Mine actually has like 3 out of 5 broken, so mine pretty much pulls out on its own. But make sure you use a flathead screwdriver, whatever you got to reach down there. Push down and then pull out and they'll come right out. This next part is probably the worst part of this whole process, because the EGR is full of coolant and you have to get rid of this hose and this hose. And if you try to just pop these off, this thing's just going to dump coolant all over the place. So this first one is what you actually want to follow all the way down. This is why you have to take the grill off. You don't necessarily need to take your headlight out, but you can if you want. But you're actually trying to find the hose. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there. So if you unpop that, it's going to dump coolant everywhere as well. So I have a big tub. Can't tell you that's the best way to do it, but that's the way I'm going to do it. So we'll see what happens. Just put my wrench in there. Put on the clamp. Just push forward. And there it goes. All right, so that worked, I would say about 70%. I still got some spillage over there, but most of it was contained in here. The best way to get these clamps off is get your pliers, press this down, then bring this all the way as high as you possibly can go until it's off. You'll feel where it's off the top of the nipple of this piece here, and then you'll be able to just wiggle, and you might have to turn a little bit, and this will eventually come off. Yeah. Pull that back. Do yourself a favor and pull this all the way out. It's really hard to pull this off with this still tucked underneath all this. Now it'll just come right off. Oh, look at that. Always gonna hurt the knuckles. Yeah. All better. Next step is to connect this line and this line with your little barb thingy that comes in your kit. Depending on what kit you have, it'll vary, but that's what mine looks like right there, because this line goes away. Don't do what I just did. Disconnected this line. I forgot to take the pressure out of your reservoir, and now I have coolant everywhere. Don't do that. Make sure you take that off before you disconnect these lines right here. All right, so I spliced them together and put the hose clamps on. The other one was right here, and I just took that off and removed it. I found that it was actually easier just to cut the rubber between all of these to get that plastic out and try to take off those other clamps. So I just snipped it and then hooked them right up that way. Made it a lot easier. But now this is just gonna have to be set to the side for now until we get the rest out. All right, now we're gonna disconnect the PCM, pull these back. On this middle cable, there's a zip tie right here. You have to snip it carefully, which allows this one to come out. All the others come out on their own. Make sure you don't get any moisture, any water, just nothing in them, because you don't want to replace that. Now my truck was already DPF deleted, so a few things are already unplugged. This orange clip sits up here, unplug it. Gray clip, I believe, sits back here somewhere. You'll see it. Follow the wire. That also comes out. This vacuum line comes out. You can see it actually disconnected itself actually already. Right there. That comes out as well. So once all your plugs are undone and your vacuum line's undone, your kit's going to come with this little piece. It's supposed to block off this vacuum line. It doesn't fit in there, so you got to cut the top off, and then this cap slides right on top. I'll show you what that looks like and where to cut. So the vacuum line is right here. I'm going to snip the top off, and I'm going to put this guy right on top. Now it's time to start pulling bolts. So there's this little black bracket. These are 8mm. I'm going to take those out.
So just keep going.
Now we're going to remove this tube. These two bolts. Then the two bolts down there. Now, these bolts down here tend to break on people all the time. So make sure you have sprayed these multiple times with plaster. And just take it easy, because you do not want to have to drill these out. So we're going to pray these come out for me. So just to get down there, I got 1, 2, 3 extensions, a pivot, and then the 8mm. It's a heck of a device here. Let's see how this goes. I'm gonna go back and forth, tightening it and loosening it. So, even after all that, both of them broke. So, I'm not going to focus on that right now. We'll get to that later, but going to have to drill them out and re-tap. I ended up having to put a pair of vice grips on this when it was in the pipe right here. And then I'd use a hammer to slam the vice grips to actually get that thing to release, because you can see that rust on the threads. So now you can put this plate with the O-ring on it right here. So from this point on, you're pretty much removing all the bolts holding the actual unit itself on, all the little brackets. So it's going to be a whole lot of reaching and trying to find hidden bolts, because there's a bunch of them hidden in there. All right, so I wasn't able to show you the bolt locations very well. I was trying to video it, but it wasn't working out. Basically, you have 3 bolts along this side, 3 bolts along this side. You just have to peek in there, use a flashlight, you'll see them. And you also have 1 bolt on top. Get all those out, undo this bracket. And when I found this thing, I was shaking it, nothing budged. So what I had to do is grab this bar, just gently put it under here and pop up, and the whole thing, as you can see, is separated. But when I did that, it released a ton of coolant. Now I have more coolant on the ground. So now I'm going to wiggle this out and see if I can reach the stuff in the back. With the EGR sitting out here, you can really see the spots where each bolt is much easier. So you can see you have 1, 2, 3 on this side, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. You have 1 in the middle, and then the brackets that attach up front. So this is actually the back of the EGR, and this is that bolt that is all the way tucked back there. But mine, I didn't even have to touch this. It just came right out. So it'll depend on your vehicle, but you can see there's a gap and there was a hook that hooks right on there. And I just was able to pull up on the EGR and then it came right out. To get back to these bolts back here, the only way you're really going to do that is with like 4 extensions in a swivel. That was the only way I could get to them. You have to be patient with it, but other than that, I mean, it's not actually as bad as you think. It's just a matter of getting your hands back there and getting the socket on the bolt. Well, here's my next day update. The quick connect right here that you have to disconnect, it broke on me right there. Snapped right off. So I ended up having to cut this, and I found this whole new tube with this piece and then the piece that goes on top on Amazon. So it's on its way. It'll be here tomorrow. So I got to replace that as well. And I had to drill these out. Finally got them drilled out. So I'm going to see if I can find the right tap and figure out what size bolts I'm going to need to fit in there.